Are the Mets better right now than they were at the end of last season?
Yes, they are better. We can get into the incremental parts on how incrementally better they are. But yes, they are right now because really on the surface, position-wise, it's pretty much the same team, except we're swapping out Soto for Alonso at the moment. So I think we can all agree that Soto is a significant offensive upgrade from Pete Alonso. They'd like to have both on the team. Fans would like to have both on the team. The Mets, I'm not so sure at this point. But yeah, positionally, yes. The rotation-wise gets a little dicier, but I think you might be able to say that, yes, too. Montes is kind of a Severino fill-in. Supposedly you have Senger at the top of it now. You have other guys back here. Obviously, there's no Quintana. He's gone. But you have Peterson back in the line, in the back of the rotation. Manaya's back, which is a huge one. So you're talking about a similar rotation here. And I think the bullpen is probably a little bit better, too. So weighing those factors, yes. Now, are they a World Series favorite at this point? No, but they have improved themselves since the end of last year.
I get what you're saying, and there is certainly a path for this team to be better than last year's team. But I don't think you can sit here right now and say definitively that this is a better team. The 2024 Mets had a lot of things go right, whether that was a better than expected season from Severino, from Sean Manaea. They got more out of the rotation than really I think a lot of people thought. The lineup stayed remarkably healthy with the exception of that Lindor injury down the stretch last year. The bullpen wound up being fine. I don't think it's certainly clearly improved. So, yeah, like obviously I love Juan Soto, and that's a big addition. And if you don't get Pete back, you can still talk yourself into the lineup and all that. But I don't think you can say that this team is clearly better. They're as good, but I don't know about
Well, we
better.
haven't seen this team play yet.
Sure, right.
I'm looking at the names on paper right now, and what the Mets are planning for this team to do. These players, I think, as a whole.
What if things start going wrong in ways that they didn't last year? Did they have enough depth to really make up for that, especially on the pitching side?
But nothing can go wrong right now, as we sit here in late January. So I think that's what we have to base it on at the moment.
I actually think they have more depth heading into this year than they did heading into last year, especially on their pitching side. Because if you look at it, Griffin Canning enters this season as their 6th, 7th starter. Okay, he's Griffin Canning. He's not somebody that's going to be, in the first ballot for the Cy Young Award here, but he's a pretty solid guy to have on your list of guys who are going to be your 8 to 10 that David Stearns wants for your starting rotation, right? So I kind of like where they're at. Also, this front office is not looking at this as, hey, we have to be as good as we were on opening day as we were at the end of the last season. They have a whole season that they could sort of mix and match and make trades or whatever. That's the way that they're looking at it. So I think that I like where they're at right now. Do I think that they have room to be better? Of course, but I can't sit here and say that they're worse than they were last year.
They didn't add a horse in the rotation, which I would have liked to have seen. Even with getting Senga back and bringing Manaea back, they still needed one more less of a question mark arm. They brought in Holmes. Yeah, I mean, he could be all right. He's never started before. They brought in Montas. We saw Montas in New York, question marks. They could be good, just like they were last year for the Mets, other pitchers last year for the Mets, where we doubted them, but they needed one more, to me, legit arm. The bullpen, a little bit better on paper, to your point. I have a big issue with the lineup, though, Dave. You mentioned it, bringing in Soto makes them better, but it shouldn't be bringing in Soto and losing Pete. It should be bringing in Soto on top of either keeping Pete or finding an adequate replacement for Pete. That's why I don't think, to me, they're better, but is it better enough?
Well, what's still unclear, I think, is where a couple pieces can play here. And I look specifically, Sal, at third base. I mean, what's going to happen at third base? I mean, Viento's going to wind up at first, presumably under this plan. At third, does that mean they give Beatty another chance at that job? Does that mean Maurizio comes in May? Is he going to be ready to play by then? His health seems a little murky right now with spring training. They've gave kind of fuzzy updates on that. So, but he's a guy that can be an impact bat. So I think there are impact bats lurking as they try to put a team together right now. But again, to go back to the rotation point too that I wanted to mention also is that the one thing I am worried about with those names on the paper, did last year's rotation make them a little cocky and think they can keep doing that without spending, $150 million for a frontline starter? That's the part that could make you a little nervous. Can lightning strike twice with that group?
And this conversation, of course, will all be moot when the Mets trade for Vladimir Guerrero Jr.